Welcome everyone to episode 27 of The Worlds Don't Keep. Our schedules have finally allowed us to round up the gang so we could get episode 27 off the back burner and into production. By the gang I mean Joe, me, my cohorts Jordan, Ken, and Dan. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
What it is.
There's everybody. Today on the show we have some exciting effing news to announce. We have already announced it on the blog, and if you keep up with things you probably already know, but all the same we'll discuss it in further detail when we get to the news section. Before we get to the news, however, we have some things to get into. Those things being lore and Diablo 2 Act 4. Once those are finished, we'll cover the news we have for this show and move on to community feedback before we finally close out the show. So, enough rambling for me, let's get into some lore. What do we have this week, Jordan?
And we actually have one of the best of the whole bunch, the Kingdom of Shadow. And this happens to be, generally, I would say, based on asking people around, this tends to be the favorite, mine included.
Cool.
Absolutely. And this one actually gets going right off the bat. You have a mercenary captain named Kintrell Juman. You have him and his band going through the jungle region of Kyrgyzstan. Gorst, his second, this tall, kind of gigantesque, type guy, dark hair, just cutting through everything like it's nothing, and people just kind of thinking, well, he's not too much for, complex conversation, but it's a good guy to have on your side. And the entire reason they're out here is because they've been commissioned by a Vizjeri mage who's promised them riches beyond their wildest dreams, and all based on the findings of what could be had from, the greatest kingdom that's ever existed in Sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's generally known, in the book as the Kingdom of Shadow. And it's interesting because the entire kingdom had a quest. Their goal was to ascend into heaven without actually going through the general process of, dying and things of that nature. Now, as I say, this thing starts out pretty quick, so even though they're, it's like page 1, there are already 3 men that have already been killed just getting into the jungle. They're not quite to the ruined site, and each one goes into just the minorest of detail as to how and what got them. One was to Web of the Spider. In other words, remember in Act 3 of Diablo 2, you have the giant spiders and whatnot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that guy didn't make it.
Aww.
Another one, I think they only found his shoe. They were pretty confident the quicksand got him. Not really entirely sure what happened to him. And the first, almost identical to the current one. You have this serpentine monster that came out of the one of the river systems and snatched up poor Hargo. And the first thing that Kintrell thinks when he sees this guy is, of course it'd be Hargo.
Mm-hmm.
Lazy jerk. Always slacking off. This is what you get, Hargo. And so they're actually throwing ropes, trying to contain the situation, hopefully try and save Hargo. And you've got, by this point, from their original numbers, they're down to 15 men on the ropes. And Quavzin, the Vizjeri mage, is nowhere to be found, as usual. Anytime there's any problems, he's further on ahead, and they have no idea what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And from this point, you have a little bit of dialogue going on in Kintrell's head, because, he's really rather upset with the mage. They haven't seen anything yet. He's been promised all this, and if anything really goes wrong, if they don't find anything, he's directly going to be held responsible, because he's the one that talked the group into coming out there. And in the midst of all this, they're making a little bit of headway. One of the archers is aiming and fires off an arrow despite Kintrell trying to tell him not to do it. The thing hits the beast in the eye. This horned serpentine beast that has Hargo in its mouth.
Uh-huh.
And all of the progress they've made at pulling it onto land is, ripped away. They're, being dragged out into the water. They have to more or less cut their losses. So what Kintrell does in the extreme circumstance that it was, he goes out, rips the bow away from the guy, takes aim, and shoots Hargo in the chest.
Ouch.
Mercy killing. It's like, well, can't save you, so might as well keep you from dying a slow, painful death, I guess.
Poor Hargo.
Yeah, that's what happens when you wander from the group in Kyrgyzstan. you're just not gonna make it. No hope for you.
I hope the same is true in Diablo 3.
Right. Hopefully. I mean, I'm sure those little fetid monsters are still going to be out there.
Little bastards.
They're always going to be there. Anyways, moving right along, as they're shipping out with all this equipment for Quoth Zin, he's making these very complex calculations because there are a very specific set of circumstances to actually make this thing work. And a lot of them really don't know what's going on. They're just kind of taking everything off of faith, and they're not really into the full scope of what the sorcerer is doing. And you have a little side note here. The Vizjeri mages wear this very particular set of clothing that they call the Turanash, or what they call the Spirit Mantle. And it's, basically a cloak with infused runes, and they have minor protective abilities and, different powers infused in them. So you'd always know a Vizjeri generally if you saw one.
Mm-hmm.
And Quoth Zin is a short guy, just short, old, angry, Vizjeri mage that is obsessed with the Kingdom of Shadow. Like, pretty much nothing else exists in his head.
Wow.
And in the mountain of Namur, you have ruins of the kingdom itself, and they called it at the time the Light Among Lights. It was, as I say, the greatest kingdom that ever existed on Sanctuary. And in its time, it would have been, the most wealthy and one of the largest, and you see it carved out of the side of a mountain. And if you ever look at the concept art, you can see an image of it in the Diablo 3 stuff they have on there. It's pretty epic and amazing. In the midst of searching through, they finally reach the actual ruins, and the group has a chance to kind of search through and scavenge around, see if they can't find anything of value. And Kintrell actually pulls up this little tiny brooch, and it has, this beautiful green-eyed, red-headed woman on it. And he's looking at it going, oh man, that's awesome. This woman is probably thousands of years long since dead, but I'm gonna keep this. This is my keepsake. A captain's supposed to have a little bit more pay than the rest, so I'm not gonna tell anybody about this. And Gorst kind of sneaks up on him. He's like, hey, what you got there? He's like, huh, what?
Nothing. Nothing.
It's like, oh, it's you, Gorst. Gorst is basically his best friend. He's the second in command, and they're very close. And he's always amazed by Gorst because he's very smart. He just doesn't appear to be at times.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very simplistic way about things, but he can just sneak up like a cat, and you're just like, how the hell did you sneak up on me? You're like 7 feet tall, It's like, oh, okay.
It's a gift.
He shows Gorst in such a way that no one else would be able to see what it is. And he's like, oh, pretty. And Gorst always refers to Quoth Zin as the magic man. He's fascinated with magic and the Vizjeri mage, and he's just, kind of childlike in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, the magic man wants to see you kind of deal. He's like, fine. I wanted to have a talk with him anyway, because at this point, Kintrell was about to tell him off and say, you know what, we're just going to turn back. This is stupid. We haven't seen anything out here. The pay was really just not enough to get us out here anyway, so he was pretty much determined to cut his losses. In the midst of this, Sin tells him the story of the Kingdom of Shadow itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the ruler and his people all had a plan to escape the persecution of one of the worst, of course, Diablo. In the midst of all this, the Light Among Lights, the greatest kingdom, it was said to be without fear. And this was something that greatly angered Diablo. It was just, pretty much spitting in his face.
Uh-huh.
He just couldn't stand it. So he was determined to completely undermine and destroy the kingdom itself. So they were in a little bit of a race against time because they wanted to find a way to escape that kind of conclusion. They knew that it was only a matter of time before things got really rough, and it got to the point where there were demonic presence all around the kingdom. People were afraid to even leave or come in. So in the midst of all this, they developed a spell that would allow them to rise into the kingdom of the high heavens without actually going through the general process.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the story. And the whole thing that Quoth Zin realized was that he would actually be able to reach the Shadow Realm. Just imagine an entire kingdom and all of its wealth and all of this existing almost in a state of limbo. All the people are gone. They've supposedly gone to heaven, but you could access this and just loot everything you wanted without consequence. So it was essentially a king's ransom for anyone that was able to do it. And Kentril and the men weren't really aware of this. They were thinking, that it was somewhere in the ruins. They didn't think it was part of some magical shadow kingdom that existed in limbo. They might not have agreed to do it if they had known that. So they're still essentially under a mine of this. And they had heard stories, obviously. Anyone had heard of Uray. And in the midst of this, you have a little bit of a back and forth. Kentril thinks, well, okay, maybe there's something to this. We're already here. We can give it one more day. We can always leave tomorrow if that's the case. So the reason why the Vizieri mage actually believed any of this was based on the notes of Gregus Motzi. Gregus Motzi was a Vizieri mage who lived in the Kingdom of Shadow and was actually partway responsible for the spell. But when it happened, wrong, and he was still left in the mortal plane. He was still in Sanctuary, whereas everyone else had gone. And so he spent essentially 12 years doing research on how he could get back. And he had also hired on his own mercenary group to get out there. At the time, one of the main players of that was a guy by the name of Humbart Wessel. And it was based on his notes and Gregus Motzi's notes that he knew that he could actually also access the Kingdom of Shadow, because Gregus Motzi never returned. Humbart Wessel wrote about the fact that he, essentially ascended wherever the kingdom actually was. So, with the alignment being tomorrow evening, a very rare event where the shadows cast at just the right place, you could actually access it. Not too far away, you have a necromancer who lives in the local area by the name of Zale. And Zale had lived there his entire life and always been rather fascinated with the Kingdom of Shadow. He knew that as a necromancer, the balance that existed within the forces within that area were rather strained. They weren't normal, and you could just tell by whatever happened to be in there if you were, magically acclimated in any way. And so Zale, looking down on the situation from his high vantage point, looked at it and said, this isn't good. They could actually destroy the balance that exists here, so I need to run them off. And that night, you're listening to Kentril talk about that night. He wakes up, and he sees, the former mercenary who got killed, Hargo. And he's bloated, mangled, and deformed. Just a terrible sight. And Hargo warns him to leave. He says, this is going to happen to all of you if you stay here. And he's freaking out, and then he suddenly he jolts awake and he realizes that it was a dream. And he looks around and everybody had the same dream.
Whoa.
Every one of the mercenaries are freaking out, knowing that, the same message came from Hargo, and they're like, we need to get the hell out of here. We need to go. And he's like, all right, look, you guys settle down. We do not need to leave in the dark. We're just going to get killed if we do that. We have to wait until morning anyway you cut it. Like, okay, fine. Well, even Gore seemed a little bit, off kilter. He's like, if even he's freaked out, that's not good. Kentril decides to go tell his employer that they've had this terrible vision. They don't want to stay anymore. Screw it, it's not worth it. And then he's thinking to himself, this Vizieri mage has been looking down on him and ridiculing him, any chance he got. What is he going to do if he tells him that his brave mercenary band was afraid of a scary dream? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, you know what, screw it. I'm not even going to tell him why. I'm just going to say, we're gone, You have fun tomorrow on your own. And so the next day comes, they're all packing up. He goes to tell him, and this huge storm hits. Just crazy, gale force winds, rain, lightning. One of them actually strikes so close that it, flings up dirt on him. So they all flee into this outcropping of the city in what seems to be a fairly remaining stable building, amongst the rest of them that are rather dilapidated. And so they're all huddled together in this little room for, who knows how many hours. And Kentril's like, I really, really do hate Quaffsin. I really do, but I can't leave him out there. So he, braves through the wind and the rain and the lightning, and he gets into the tent, and he's like, "Are you all right?" He's like, "Well, why wouldn't I be?" And he looks around in this, abnormally large tent, bigger than it actually physically should have been, and it's completely calm. There's no sound outside. And he's like, "What in the world's going on?" And he looks down, and he's dry, and there's no sign that there had been any storm at all. He's like, "I didn't think you were the type to hit the liquor, Captain." And it's like, "I wasn't drinking. What are you talking about?" He's poking his head outside, and there's nothing. It's sunny day. So he's kind of freaked out, like, okay, well, we're gonna leave, and he's like, "Well, it's only like a few hours away. You might as well stay." And it's like, "It's gonna be dark soon." It's like, "Oh, I guess one more day." you know. And he's walking back to his men, and he's thinking to himself, "This is weird." He seemed overly calm when I told him it was storming. Something's off. He's like, "Maybe the Vizjeri mage did all of this to keep us to stay." And he's kind of wondering, but he's like, "You know what? Fine. I'm not gonna think too much on this.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. We're just gonna work our way through it." And so the alignment is coming up in the early evening, and Quavsin begins casting the spell. All of the mercenaries are standing around in this location, and Zale actually bursts in to intervene, and is basically just like, "Stop in the name of the balance. You can't do this." And all of the mercenaries are drawing their weapons, and Kintril looks him in the eyes, and you actually have that quote. If you ever see the posts I make on the forums, the tagline I have is actually from the book.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really fascinating is that despite all this, Quav Zin continues the spell, and he finishes up, and Zale is very concerned here, and nothing seems to have happened. He's like, and Quav Zin is freaking out. He's like, "It was him. He threw it off." He's like, "I didn't do anything." I mean, I was gonna stop you, but obviously I didn't need to, since it obviously failed. And they looked out, and all of a sudden they saw a single light coming from the city of Uray, and then another, and then another, and all of a sudden the ancient kingdom itself was well lit, and the whole thing seemed to be coming to life just as it was, however long ago it was,
Mm-hmm.
as though it had never gone anywhere. And so the group actually go in to explore it, and all of the this odd situation kind of arises because you kind of go from, "Oh no, the necromancer," to everybody being like, "Whoa, let's go over there." It's like even Zaya was all like, "Wow,"
Mm-hmm.
It's just even seeing an emotional reaction on a necromancer's face is very odd. Generally, they're completely composed, and you never see anything change
Right.
over their face. And so you have this real spectacle, something that you would never see in all of your life. And they're like, "Okay, I think I'm going to accompany you guys." It's like, whatever. I don't care that you're a necromancer right now. This is too good to pass up. And so they all essentially go exploring into the kingdom, and it looks as though everything is exactly how it had been, as though no one had ever left. You could walk into someone's house and still see food on the table.
Uh-huh.
You could see candles lit. You could see, literally as though someone had just stepped out.
Strange.
But yeah, it was an entire city. After they passed through those gates, everything was like that. And the mercenaries are going, "Hey, look, there's a little shop over there. I wonder if they still have coin in the register, as it were." And it's like, "Look at this place, man. You think you're gonna be bothering with such, tiny coin after we go to the mainstay of this place?" It's like, "Yeah." It's like, I tell you what, if you really want to, after we're all rich as kings, you can come back and pilfer the little coins that are in there. They're just all like, "Oh, this is beyond my expectations." And despite all of this, they hear a scream off in the distance. There's already one of the mercenaries dead. Benjen just is cut down, just mangled, and they're looking around going, "What the hell just happened?"
Mm-hmm.
And besides that, the city should be completely empty. And you see everyone arguing about what's going on. Some of the mercenaries saying they saw something. They saw this giant figure bolt out across, and they're discussing what it could be. And they finally decide that it was this huge, I mean, just unbelievably 7 feet tall, giant fire black cat. 7 feet tall on all fours. Just not something that you would expect to ever see. And these claws that are curled and a foot long each, and just quick as anything, has these red eyes with no pupils, jagged fur, 2 sets of teeth. The thing roars, and it has this giant barbed tail, and it just ripped through one of their ranks like he was nothing. Again, this is what happens when you wander off by yourself. And the thing sets its eyes on Kentrell, and they kind of have a little bit of a staring contest here for a moment. And the thing was the first to look away and actually charges him. And he was dead in the water. There was no shot at all. But Zale actually bolted in front of him faster than anyone would have expected and fended him off with his dagger.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the cool aspect to the books versus the games, was that necromancers were unbelievably powerful even on a physical level. A lot of their magic would actually drain them physically. It was a very real connection, unlike what mages would do. Mages were very dependent on their knowledge more so than their physical prowess.
Mm-hmm.
Necromancers were kind of a hybrid in that respect. Obviously, the captain is very thankful for not being killed right on the spot. When Zale jumps into the fight, he actually matches a few blows and fends off the creature until he gets knocked out of the way and aside and out of the fight temporarily. Oscar, one of the other mercenaries, got a little too close trying to approach it from the back and got his head smashed in by the thing's tail. Just imagine a flanged mace just crushing your skull in one shot.
Ooh, no thanks.
No, it's not the sort of thing you'd want to mess with.
No. No.
And I think one of them actually manages to stab at it, get a little light blow in. I think it was Oscar before he got killed. Gorse manages to get on the thing's back, stab it through the throat, and literally leverage the thing's throat open with the sword, using it like a lever, and is one of the main players here that manages to take the thing down. I remember Zale got a little bit of a shot in. Being that it was an enchanted weapon, it obviously did a lot more damage than what you'd expect a small bone dagger to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have all of them surrounding you, just stabbing the hell out of this thing before it actually dies. Just took a hell of an effort to do it. And now you're down to 12 men. There are 3 men dead from this entire event. You had the first, when they didn't know that the thing existed, you had Oscar got killed, and I think another one as well. And at this point you hear mysterious music playing, and it just seems to be getting louder and louder, and you just, there doesn't seem to be anyone around, and then all of a sudden you see ghosts everywhere, and they just have this lifeless gaze, and they're just heading toward you, and they try to run for the gate, but it's blocked. The only way out of the city is completely blocked off now. And so they keep running, and they're kind of look to Zale going, what's the deal here, Zale? I mean, this is kind of your specialty, right? You're a necromancer. It's like, are these ghosts? I mean, he's like, are they harmful? I mean, what's going on? These don't seem to exhibit the usual properties of, yeah, we should just stay away from them. It's like, I'm not really sure what's going on either. So, they're running through the streets, and every time they...
In my professional opinion, run.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not a good place to be right now. So, they're running. They kind of figure maybe we can, escape over one of the towers. They're trying to figure an alternate route, and they're running from the ghosts that are behind them. And they keep trying to make turns into alleyways, and a lot of them are blocked. Finally, they make one, and they realize that as they're running, Zale kind of leans over and he's like, we're being led. They're never close enough to actually get us, and that's intentional. They're actually leading us somewhere. So it's like, I don't know what's going on here, but
Herded
I guess
like sheep.
Yeah, they were literally herded like sheep through the city to the main palace, the actual part that you see as a central area, and they ascend up this spiral staircase that's just massive, built into this main structure, and they're led all the way up to this the palace of Juris Khan, the ruler of the kingdom. And everywhere they look, it has this very unusual darkness, the kind of thing that isn't really penetrated normally by torchlight. And there are these huge gargoyle statues at the gate. They don't react to anyone, Each one passes through no problem, except when Qualf Zin tries to pass through, the things freak out and, try to attack him. And so he backs off, it's like, oh, gargoyles are generally supposed to protect from bad people, and they're kind of looking at Zen like, yeah, you jerk. It's like, okay, I've got an idea. And they kind of pair off so that Kentril is on one side and Zale is on the other, and kind of shield him from, being noticed. And I think they still do react, but they actually manage to get past all the same. And they also notice there are these angelic statues, very ornately decorated within the room, and they're very much so torn down, just, battered and bruised, arms missing, head missing, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they finally see the king sitting at this throne, and they hear the flute player was actually in there as well, and it was the daughter of the ruler, and her name is Atana. And I'd say this is a pretty good point to stop from here, reaching the palace of Juris Khan.
When you mentioned the whole thing about the gargoyles, part of me really wanted to make a Dungeons and Dragons joke about finding out that one of your party members is immune to blasphemy.
Nice.
It's like, oh yes, I too am stunned because I am good aligned. Like, yeah. Oh, this is.
Yeah, I figured you might have a comment for that particular aspect.
Oh, I feel left out. I never played Dungeons and Dragons before.
I didn't either, but it is something that you see in other game types, like even within what's it called? What was the first big MMO?
Are you talking like
Ultima
EverQuest,
Online.
or are you talking Ultima Online?
Ultima Online. They also had an alignment system, so if you just went out and killing things, then good things would essentially attack you on sight. But bad things would attack you. If you were bad, then bad things wouldn't attack you and good things would. So it had that sort of alignment placement that ultimately would always work as pros and cons. If you were bad, good things would attack you. If you were good, bad things would attack you.
Right. Huh.
If you were really bad, merchants wouldn't even sell to you.
Yeah. So to explain a bit, in D&D, blasphemy is it's just a really powerful spell. It stuns, but it only it only hits good aligned characters. So when the party rogue isn't affected by it, it's like, wait a second.
Nice.
So we leaving it there?
Yeah, we'll leave it right there for now. And
Perfect. Hope you enjoyed that. Right now, we're going to move on to Diablo 2 Act 4. Anybody want to be the torchbearer for the shortest act in Diablo 2?
I really like this act, actually. Now,
I think the only problem with it was too short.
Yep.
And there we go. There's sort of the main complaint about the act, is that it's too short. And personally, and I believe I've mentioned this in past episodes, I don't think that's a problem, actually.
No,
I don't think it's a problem, because storyline wise, what's the traditional story structure? Is how many acts? 3 acts. It's so it's usually a 3-act structure. Yet we've got 4 in Diablo 2.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there 4 acts?
Ran out of development money. WoW wasn't out yet.
WoW wasn't out yet. Ran out of development money. It's in part its technical limitations. The acts are confined to physical locations. So when you move from Kurast into Hell, they do an act transition with
Right.
that. Storyline wise, though, it's still the climax of the game. We're still dealing with sort of this rapidly rising action up into the final conflict. And so even though it is I think if they hadn't had that like such explicit act transitions, people wouldn't be as concerned about the length of it. It would have just been, oh yeah, once you defeat Baal, or Mephisto, you move into hell and then you blow through, and you've got a couple little side quests, but they're not even side quests. They're points that you hit on your way to Diablo.
Right.
And there's your big final boss. So I think pacing wise, it actually works very well at keeping you rolling. I know that when I first played through it, I got into the area and was very far into it in the same session that I beat Mephisto. So pacing wise, it does keep you moving. It draws you in, and it doesn't overload itself with kind of needless things to do, little side quests that don't really have any bearing on it. And we see this complaint a lot particularly in MMOs, where it's like, I'm supposed to be this big giant hero.
Why am I going to pick some
level
berries?
80, level 84, and people want, it's like, here, I left a book on the other side of town. Can you go pick it up for me? It's like, dude, like, I can teleport to other dimensions, and that you want me to go, pick berries or, collect, bear livers? Like, seriously?
Can you babysit my 4-year-old?
Yeah.
No.
So that's kind of so if we look at it in that perspective, that on the definite plus side, it isn't unnecessarily padded out with other stuff. Everything that you do is either along the way or is directly relevant to the storyline. It's I'm going to mispronounce the name. Azul. So you've got Azul, who's more or less right in your way, but he's also relevant, directly relevant to the whole conflict of what's going on here with the primevals.
Right.
And you've got the Forge, where break the soul stones. That's basically your main goal in the game, is break these soul stones.
Yep.
And Diablo himself.
Yep, and that's the quest line he was talking about there. Only 3 quests for Act 4.
Right, and a lot of it's very interesting because for those of us who played, Diablo 2 long before the expansion ever came out, you didn't really do Baal runs. Eventually,
Could try, yeah.
Yeah, you could get up to doing cow runs and all that, but in vanilla Diablo 2, it was a lot of fun farming in Act 4. And so, you think back, it really wasn't all that bad farming Act 4. It was a lot more fun, I think, than getting through any of the other acts, because, let's face it, by the time you get through Act 3, you're pretty much okay with anything.
Yeah, Serenity Now had some feedback, or, well, not so much feedback as he wanted to put in his 2 cents about Act 4, since he knew we were going to be talking about it in the next episode. He says from the blog, in regards to Diablo 2 Act 4, which I think is still in the plans for this episode, the thing I really hated about it, besides it being so short, is sometimes you could get big packs of burning souls in the Plains of Despair in normal mode, which could kill you very easily, since you really didn't have much light resistance your first playthrough. So yeah, pretty much running up on those burning souls, which were the lightning enchanted dudes, that if you run up on a pack, you're done in record time.
I think from a realistic point of view, if you want to think about it logically, a lot of the game, the first playthrough, really wasn't all that challenging. What keynotes did you really hit that were really like, oh my gosh, well, Duriel.
Looking for Baal.
Duriel was
Duriel, Andariel.
Yeah. So
Azul,
pretty much just
Azul took forever to kill. He wasn't hard, but he just took forever.
Save yourself.
No, he wasn't hard at all. Very rarely did you see people get killed by Azul.
Yeah.
Andariel.
Basically, like sub-bosses and act bosses.
Right. The only other one I can really think of is maybe
the Council?
Yeah, the council was fairly tough, and also
They were fun though.
Rodament could kill you pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean,
Because,
and there's another sub boss.
Mhm.
So council's a sub bosses and act bosses.
Yeah, so this was really the very first instance where you'd run into monsters that would randomly kill you, like you just weren't expecting, that next playthrough of the Plains of Despair and whatnot to just, completely annihilate you.
Instant death.
Yeah, and that was something that was important to the game since healing potions were a big part of it. You needed instant death in Diablo 2. As flawed as that is for a game like Diablo 3, it was necessary.
It seems to be lightning enchant sets you run it into that problem. Because, I mean, there's so many times where I went to go kill Rakanishu and he would just two-shot me after I hit him because he's
Right.
lightning enchanted. Rakanishu! And same with Act 2, the Scarab Beetles. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Getting into a
Yeah.
pack of those in the friggin' maggot layer, done.
Those are especially terrible the first time you play through Hell mode, because all of your resistances are so much lowered, and you
Yeah.
know the moment you hit Act 2, you're just going to be suffering.
Good luck getting
Yeah.
your body back.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's why on hardcore I always go with Paladin because of the salvation aura.
Oh, right.
At least until you have the gear to not need it.
Yeah, if you're fairly high level on a barbarian, you have the natural resist you could throw in and help offset a lot of the dangers. If you were an assassin, you could just go with fade depending on what your build was.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a few different things you could do, but if you were a sorcerer or something like that, it was just I hope you have a very long distance attack. Preferably something that you don't need to stand around to make it work, like Hydra. Which brings me to my other very, very fond memory of Diablo 2 Vanilla. It was a technique I like to call Hydra Wall, because back then there was no cooldown on Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
That was when the skill was absolutely amazing in my book. It didn't really do that much damage per bolt, but if you had 50 of them, it really didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that in Firewall.
Yeah. After they patched that through and, it got to the point where you essentially could no longer spam them. It's like, they do a ton more damage and everything. That's great. I'm sure it's all well balanced and whatnot, but I no longer feel any incentive to do this anymore.
Should we talk about some NPCs in Act 4?
Oh,
Yeah, we should.
It won't,
It's pretty
won't be very
small.
long.
There's NPCs in Act 4?
Well,
There's a few.
I mean, you can, if you can count to 2.
Well, there's Deckard Cain and
I don't
Tyrael.
count him because he's with you everywhere. And Tyrael is kind of interesting because he acts as a mercenary resurrector, but he doesn't sell mercenaries.
That's right.
So he
That'd
does
be cool if he
half
sold
the job.
angels. He's like, hey, you want to hire an angel? Come talk to me.
Yeah, I'd like to hire that guy that you find in the River of Flame. I think his name is Hadriel.
Yep.
Just kind of standing there, stop, go back.
Which is one I always forget until
Yeah,
I
I-
see
Stop
him.
and
I'm
go
like,
back.
oh my gosh, there's another angel in the game. I totally forgot about you.
I think what's kind of funny is that he serves the exact same role as that
That's
rogue you find
Flavy.
in Act
Flavy.
One.
Whatever
He
his
is
name
the
is.
Flavy of the high heavens.
See,
That
the thing is
nice.
Flavy's job kind of made sense. It's like, okay, she's a rogue. She's out there kind of on reconnaissance. She can handle her own because she attacks the stuff. This dude, his job sucks. He's like, all right, what I need you to do is I need you to go stand outside Diablo's Fortress of Terror and just kind of remind people that, hey, no pedestrian access down this road. It's just stand there.
You're gonna die.
You're not doing anything. You're just
He's basically the traffic guard.
Yeah. He also provides you with some instructions on how to summon Diablo.
Proceed, hero, into Terror's lair. Know that Diablo's innermost sanctum is hidden by 5 seals. Only by opening each of these seals can you clear your way to the final battle.
Oh, he's the one that tells you that? I always
Yep.
just figured it out on my own.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's not really necessary, but
it's not really necessary. Like, I guess that's good advice, but
It's
It
kind
almost
of,
seems like the kind of
again,
thing you just stumble on. Like, okay, well, let's run around and kill everything, because this is a game where the goal is to run around and kill everything.
Yep.
I mean, Flavy talks to you as well, but it's not really necessary.
It's
But
not
yeah,
as if they actually like stop you. They're just like, I'm gonna warn you, you might want to do this quest before coming in here. But you know, if you want to go ahead, go ahead.
the only other interesting part is that you think, oh, this is Diablo Sanctum. Notice it's not called the Terror Sanctuary. It's called the Chaos Sanctuary, and it's very aptly put for the simple reason that, from a lore standpoint, remember that angels and demons do not represent good and evil. They essentially represent chaos and order. And that's one of the keynote themes that you see throughout any of the stories for the system, is that, you know, angels and demons can essentially screw you over and kill you and oppress you and do all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Either one of them in control is a bad thing, because if hell ever gained leverage and took over everything, they would literally burn everything out in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
By contrast, if angels were in charge of everything, then everything would be completely ordered, everything would be oppressive, and you would essentially just have everything in the universe become stagnant. No change.
Boring.
Yeah, so you really wouldn't want this ultimately to play out in either's favor, and that's where you have, you know, humanity on Sanctuary stuck in the middle.
Right.
And the necromancers protecting the balance, and so on and so forth.
I love me some necros.
Oh yeah. The only other really odd thing about Act 4 as far as the actual NPCs is that, aside from Deckard Cain and Tyrael, they don't talk to you. Like, they have a little voice thing when you click on them, but they won't actually engage you in any dialogue. You can't ask them about, you know, what do you think of quest number 1?
Really?
They won't talk to you. Yeah.
Oh.
You never noticed that?
No.
There's no lore you can derive from either Halbu or Jamela.
No chat dialogue or rumor.
I bet they're not even real.
They are figments of your imagination, or possible materials.
You know what I actually thought was kind of interesting? Remember in Act 3, when you first go outside into the swamp, and the Wanderer's there, and he disappears into a bunch of fleshlings, whatever the little guys are.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Usually, like, if this is normal and it's my first time through the game, I didn't lose to the little fleshlings, but, they took some hits. They were a little bit tough. And then when you go out into Act 4 and you start fighting the guys, you puke those out and you're just decimating them in one hit. I was like, I think I've leveled up a couple of times since last we encountered.
Yeah.
I just love markers that can show you your power scaling in a game.
Right.
Yeah, it's always a really important effect, because without a sense of scope and scale, like, you could be traveling 1,000 miles per hour, but without a point of reference, you don't really know that you're moving.
Yeah, like, it's a lot of the games, I love it when they do this. Like, the very first boss you fight in the game turns out to just be a regular monster you fight later.
Yeah.
You fight like 100 of them at once, and you're like, oh, that guy was so hard when I first fought him. Now he's just a noob.
And that's kind of the amazing thing with what they're doing with Diablo 3, because remember, they said something similar to that effect with the Siegebreaker. This is not some super crazy boss necessarily. You know, you might just be encountering these as regular mobs elsewhere.
Ooh.
So when you...
I hope.
Or the other
Could you
thing
imagine 10 of those on screen at the same time?
I was about to say, how do you fight that?
You're effed.
The other thing
All right,
is,
line them all up and I'll disintegrate them.
remember the fight with the 1,000-pounder?
Yeah.
Yep.
And you have that scene where all the flesh and bone and everything's forming on him?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Well, they also alluded to the fact that you might be fighting them
Like
with...
half summoned and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I was like super excited about.
Yeah, you see that guy, like, or a few of them running at you with no skin.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that's awesome.
Or like one arm with half a rib cage. Oh.
Now, actually, talking about monsters, and Ken mentioned the the fleshlings. I just wanted to mention them really quick. I really liked those. I really liked the design of those, and I loved them when they first came out because at the time I was reading a lot of Clive Barker, particularly Weave World and Imagica, and he used a lot of that same kind of design in describing his characters. He had his method of horror was kind of Cronenberg-esque. It was all about flesh and creatures spawning other creatures, and so you'd have things like things would tear off parts of themselves, and then those would come alive and chase
Silent
after
Hill
you.
type nastiness.
Yeah, we see that again in Silent Hill, and so I just really liked it at the time. I was reading all of these books about in fact, in Weave World there is a character, one of the main antagonists does that. They vomit up these smaller little just blobs of animate flesh with like claws and mouths that chase after people, and so I was like, ah!
The other thing that I noticed, I'm actually got the game up right now, and I'm killing the monsters in Act 4.
Me too.
Looking at the grotesque, the ones that actually spawn the flesh worms, they really do seem very reminiscent about that recent lore we got into with the Lizanti. They have a humanoid female form. If you look closely at them, they do have breasts.
Yeah, they do. It's really gross.
They look like they could be a mixture of a couple different animal types. So I'm thinking, I wonder if they actually took this concept and said, okay, we want you to make a monster, from the Diablo universe and put it into story format. And he looked at those and thought, yeah, let's put some lore into her.
Yuck. They're gross. There's just great attention to detail in Act 4. Like the little stashes and stuff you get, there'll be like rib cages that you crack open, or trapped souls that are like strapped down and you release them and gold pops out. And one of my favorite things is actually the pillars that have like the chained bodies to them, and if you get close enough they'll actually attack you.
Yeah.
Start taking swipes at you.
My favorite part detail-wise in Act 4 is the River of Flame, because you'll actually see the bodies try and hop up out of the lava in certain places. They never make it out. You kind of like, oh, that's extremely sad. That to me was really cool because, again, if you're not paying attention, you don't notice it. So you have this real awesome aspect that is only really present if you're listening or paying attention or that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So the areas in Act 4, we have the Outer Steppes, which is what you get into as soon as you walk out of the Pandemonium Fortress. And then you go to the Plains of Despair, which is where you find Azul. And then once you're done with that, you move on to City of the Damned, and then there's steps that go down to the River of Flame, and then Chaos Sanctuary. River of Flame is where you find Hephaesto the Armorer, which he was a bitch, thank you very much.
Yeah, it was.
That guy hits hard.
Yeah,
Did you catch the lore part of that name, Hephaesto?
No. Refresh my
I know it
memory.
always sounded like Mephisto.
What about you, Dan?
Hephaesto. Oh, I'm blanking out. I feel like I should.
You probably will as soon as I say it. In Greek mythology, the armorer of the
Hephaestus,
Greek gods,
the armorer in Hades, who... Okay, yes,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
Yeah. And also...
I still don't get it.
Yeah, explain.
Well, remember, if you ever read Greek mythology and you have like these awesome, amazing things that, the Greek gods wear and work with and all that, they're all made by the same guy. And as it so happens, he had to kind of work out a deal and try to get women in different ways because he was deformed to some degree. He is kind of a cripple.
Aww.
And so that's also one of the reasons why they modeled Hephaesto in the River of Flame after an overlord whose lore also coincides with, from the original Diablo 1 lore, the ones that were the followers of Inarius that were tortured and maimed and essentially turned into these hideous creatures.
It's all connected.
Right. So if you know a lot about real-world mythology, really gets into a lot of nitty-gritty details.
Well, the problem with that is I don't speak or read Greek, so I would have a hard time reading their literature.
Nice.
That's what movies are for, right? I mean,
Nice.
Clash of the Titans, anybody?
I hated that movie.
Did you
Yeah,
know
Now
that
here's
the
that was a
armor,
joke, by the way.
the armor and the smith have the same model, and they both look very much like the butcher.
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah, they're all modeled after the Overlord. And
Smith from Act 1. Who also holds a hammer from you. He's got Charcy's hammer. How about that?
yeah,
They
There's
like
a little
their
recurring
hammers.
theme.
yeah. So you actually do
cleavers,
have
hammers. Wait, I know what we're going to encounter in Diablo 3. We've got the butcher, we've got the baker. We just need a candlestick maker.
quite nice.
Excellent.
That is pretty excellent.
I don't get it. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But not really.
No, the only other thing that I find somewhat interesting, like we said, the model for the butcher and the smith are exactly the same, and same with Hephaestus, right?
Right.
You ever notice that nobody talks about those quests? Anyone that reminisces, they go, "Oh man, the butcher was such an amazing quest." What really made it different?
Room of dead
Timing.
bodies.
I would say
Exactly.
timing.
It was the setting, because everything else is ultimately the same. You had an overlord run at you and could pretty much three-shot you and take a lot of hits. The core mechanics were exactly the same. The quest details are kind of irrelevant. I mean, let's face it, for the butcher quest, you didn't really get anything special unless you were playing single player.
Also, we've already been through the butchers for so many years that when they came out with something similar, we're like,
Been there,
Not
done
that.
that.
Yeah, it's the same thing again rather than being a new experience. I mean, and also I think part of it would be a lot of us played the demo, and the butcher was really the only thing in the demo. I mean, it wasn't, but you're just playing this demo game and you're running through and you're doing stuff, and then it was not hard, and then you just open this door and you've got a very memorable line, fresh meat,
Fresh meat.
and then this thing charges at you and it is like almost indestructible.
And you poop yourself.
Yeah, it's a panic moment. It really did a lot to, that does a lot to sort of solidify itself in the public consciousness.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, you're not really expecting it to. It's a pretty unique thing to come across, this square room. And can you see into it at first, or do you have to open the door?
No, you can't really. I think what happens is you can clearly see that there's something different about the room. Like you can see the blood on the floor,
Right.
and you can see the bodies. So the only thing that you actually can't see is him.
The
I
butcher
think
himself.
You'll see a little bit of a light radius. You can tell there's something in there, but you can't tell what it is.
Fresh meat.
And I think, well, the main reason I brought all this up, when you're playing through Act 4, remember we were talking about the bodies and the torches and things like that?
Uh-huh.
What do they all have in common?
they were dead. There was blood on them. They were dead.
Well, they actually looked exactly like the terrain. They looked this grayish, brownish, not really human. It very much so looked like something you would see from Silent Hill. It didn't have the appearance of someone who is still alive.
Right.
And so, as a result, it was stark contrast to the old hell of Diablo 1 that had, literally these freshly pink mangled bodies in different proportions everywhere. It was a lot more grotesque and real and, visceral in that respect, because you could imagine in the next instance you might be the next person on that pole, or, hanging from that chain, or, as opposed to a little guy slumped over who looks the exact same color as the rock he's sitting on.
I'm still going to go with they were dead.
Well, I mean, they're moving around, they're clawing at you, they're doing stuff like that, so...
I kid.
What was your favorite monster of Act 4? We see the Balrogs return from Diablo 1, which
I
is your
like those
typical
guys.
winged demon. And my coworker likes to remind me that I can't pronounce winged. He took that sound clip from that show and cut it, so it's like just that, and he sends it to me all the time. I'm like, you're such a dick.
Winged.
But I left it in there for the laughs. It still cracks
Nice.
me up every time. But anyways, yeah, the Balrogs. One of my favorite guys is the corpse throwers.
Oh, yeah,
Who
the
are like
corpse
the
bitters.
big nasty demons with like the long snouts that just eat corpses and spit them back at you.
And they got like little tentacle type appendages coming out of their mouth.
Yeah.
They really remind me of an old sea monster type movie. I can't think of the name of it, but they actually looked exactly like that, with the exception of not having the more human-esque form for the body. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
No idea.
It's like a sea monster that attacks a cruise ship.
Nessie.
No.
Revenge of Nessie.
You're no help, Ken.
Anaconda.
No help at all. I don't recall a cruise ship in Anaconda. I don't think you could put one in one of those rivers.
Oh, jeez.
Monster attacks a cruise ship.
Hey, okay, this is a good one because this means that everyone that listens to this podcast will get to take a stab at it. Put it in your comments. Say what monster had a similar appearance to the corpse spitters in Act 4.
Was it a giant squid?
I believe it was something like that, or it might have had multiple heads. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I think I'd recognize the name.
Devilfish? Because I remember, no, Devilfish had a mouth on one end and tentacles on the opposite end, and a shark fin, and yeah, that was a stupid movie.
This one actually
Octopus. Deep Rising.
What was Deep Rising about?
Let's Google.
A deep sea monster attacks a cruise ship.
There was some deep, and it rose.
Remember parts where the sea monster would get people, and you'd see like their half-digested corpses and things like that. That was one of the other things that actually got me on this whole train of thought was, the fact that you actually got to see the partially digested people, and with the corpse spitters, they just used them as projectiles against you.
Oh, yep. It appears to be Deep Rising.
Aha. There you
Yeah,
go.
I'm reading a review on it, so I'll read this just so you can tell me if that's right. This movie was created by a gay man. It would certainly explain the huge vagina that tries to attack
Nice.
The alien in this movie, or the creature rather, the huge vicious vagina is excellent as far as a B-grade science fiction alien movie goes. Is that right?
Awesome.
1998 movie?
Any of you
Doesn't
seen
make
that
sense. Wait, if it was created by a gay man, why would it be a huge vagina attacking people? That doesn't make sense.
Because he thinks vaginas are evil, obviously.
It's a stereotype
right.
of the homosexual, and so their imagery, rather than being phallic as a presentation of the broad antagonist, would be vaginal as the broad antagonist. It's actually a fundamental observation on queer theory.
Yeah.
I'm watching the trailer right now.
Nice.
Don't do it!
This movie looks excellent. How have I not seen this?
Like I say, as far as special effects are concerned, it was
Oh,
actually very entertaining
okay.
back in
Wait
the
a
day.
second. Riding a jet ski while shooting a shotgun. I am in. A sawed-off shotgun, nonetheless. What is that even doing on a cruise ship?
Oh, wow. Oh,
Tune in.
the subtitle for it is Full Scream Ahead.
Oh, man. And
That's
added to
bad.
Netflix queue. Thank you very much.
We should also do a side program where we do movie reviews.
As long as they're as awesome as this movie, I'm in.
Oh, apparently a woman gets eaten by a toilet.
I mean, tentacles can come up anywhere.
Oh, man. Where were we? What are we even talking about?
Talking about
anymore.
the favorite monsters.
Oh, yeah. Anybody else got one?
The only key side note lore, I mentioned this before, Balrogs actually originated from
Lord of the
J.R.R.
Rings.
Tolkien. So, and I don't know, the finger mages are kind of cool. You don't really see that kind of thing anywhere else. I don't know, in a weird sort of way, I look at them, I think of scarecrows. I don't know why, but it reminds me of some old horror movie type of effect. But I don't really remember which one. And they, they were really annoying in many respects because you go up and say you were going to whirlwind them down, and all of a sudden you had no mana, and you were still surrounded. They could kind of create problems for you.
Yeah. Ken,
What about
Dan,
you, Dan?
favorite monsters? Memorable?
Like I said
moments?
earlier, probably the ones that stood out to me the most would be the flesh spitters. Crap, why did I just forget the actual name of the ones that spawned the little fleshlings?
Oh, you're talking about the grotesque and
The grotesque, yeah.
yeah.
I think they made the best impact on me because
Yeah.
everything else was kind of, seeing the Balrogs back from 1, that was kind of nice, but they weren't really a new one. Sort of runner up, I guess, would be the knights, the ones that would put
The Oblivion
the
Knights.
curse on the Oblivion Knights. They're excellent in how terrible they are. They're a great great monster for antagonizing the player by throwing out that Iron Maiden that kills your barbarian in a fraction of a second.
In mid-whirlwind.
Yeah, because
Unavoidable.
as stupid as that is, it's something that we remember. And
Yeah, definitely.
It's gone. It's
yeah,
done.
I know it's gone. It's gone now. So
I'm happy.
well, and part of me is happy as well, but part of me is wondering if that was the right choice.
I'd
Yeah.
say at this point
It's
it
gone
doesn't
from
matter.
Diablo 2.
It's gone from Diablo 2, yeah.
Patched
Yeah,
it out.
They patched it.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
no longer.
Oh.
Now, part of the problem with it was that it overtly antagonized melee characters over ranged characters because
Well,
the feedback
they-
only applied to melee attacks.
Right.
Well, the feedback and also the feedback curse, I don't think you ever see it until Act 5. But the problem with the Iron Maiden is there was no skill level to playing against it. Like, if you whirlwinded at the wrong time, you were just dead. So you were stuck just melee attacking just
Right.
regularly and then running away. Because even if you did like a bash and you got Iron Maiden, you're in trouble. So it's just unnecessarily long time to kill things when they're just normal mobs.
Right. And a lot of it also has to do with the core mechanics to Diablo 2 itself, where you have monsters with extremely high hit points and heroes with extremely high damage. So just based on how everything functionally works, Iron Maiden was designed more for players than it was for monsters to have.
Well, yeah, that and like I guess the real biggest issue was like even if you're using bash or other skills, if you get Iron Maiden, you stop and run away. That's where the skill comes in, like controlling yourself. The problem is when they Iron Maiden you in the middle of a whirlwind, you can't
Right.
control it anymore. You're just dead.
Unless you're playing Diablo 3.
Yeah. So now stepping back from sort of the specific discussion of the Oblivion Knights, I guess the question that's going through my head is I've been looking at it a lot lately and asking myself, like, okay, do games almost need to have bad mechanics in them, unfair mechanics, as as a part of it? Do they need to be all amazing, or does there almost need to be those flaws, those parts that don't work as well, or that are just kind of bullcrap and frustrating, in order to provide effective emotional contrast across the entire spectrum?
I would say it really just depends on how broken the system is.
I could
In
go
the
with
same-
yeah. What are you saying?
I was just going to say, in the same sort of way that, when I said earlier that the souls that shot lightning at you could insta-kill you in that particular instance, it was necessary because without those mechanics, Diablo 2 wouldn't have had any challenge at all, because you could always just out-heal things. So it was really a way to fix the fact that the healing system was broken in Diablo 2.
Yeah, I think there's a way you could create the memorable experiences, because, if there's one thing that unites the community of Diablo, it's these unfair experiences, like having a barbarian and whirlwinding in Chaos Sanctuary and dying because you got Iron Maiden cast. But I think as they're trying to do, you get smarter with game development, you can create a better memorable experience without having the cheap throws like that, where it's a monster that one-shots you.
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
it's just in terms of being good at game design.
Well, and now that's the question: is can you? Because I think the key emotional difference here isn't just that it's a difficult experience; it's that it's blatantly unfair.
Yeah, like I'm okay with blatantly unfair. It's
Yeah,
the
me
ones
too.
that like, because unfair, I can beat unfair with skill, and I've done it in tons and tons of games. What I don't like is when it's like so unfair it's impossible. Like take for example, although like let's just pretend it wasn't part of the storyline. Take that first boss you meet in Demon's Souls. Can you beat him? No, he one shots you and he AoEs the whole room. That is blatantly retarded. If it wasn't part of the story, obviously you're just not supposed to beat that guy. But like take the Jumbo Cactuar in Final Fantasy VIII. Go fight that guy when you're not ready for him. It took me over an hour straight to beat that guy, but I beat him because he was blatantly like he did his Thousand Needles attack, and my characters only had like I don't know 1,200 hit points, so he almost one shots them every time. Some of them he does one shot, but if I can beat the blatant unfairness with skill, I'm good for it. Oh yeah, challenge me. But I just don't like the ones where you just can't win. You lose and that's it. And it doesn't matter how skilled you are, you just lose. Okay.
Right. The only other thing that I would add to that is that when you consider the fact that there are multiple classes, you also had this paradigm where it only really affected certain classes. Like, for instance, again, with the Barbarian Whirlwinding, if you used that skill, you were screwed. There was
Yeah.
no way around it.
Yeah.
Whereas a
Zeal
sorceress,
Paladin.
yeah, a sorceress didn't have any problem at all because magic damage was not affected by Iron Maiden.
Yeah, that definitely sucks.
Oh, on a lighter topic, I liked the Balrogs.
Yeah. Yeah,
They're-
I like the fact that their Infernos actually worked.
Well, yeah, you know what? Their Infernos actually kind of hurt. Yeah. But I like the Balrogs. The reason why I like them is because I was primarily a Frozen Orb sorceress. And those guys just love to clump up really tight to each other.
Yeah.
And they're immune to fire, so I didn't care. And then the way they die and that scream they make, the blah and the poof of fire.
Yeah, they're awesome.
The only thing I
I'll
would
go
add
with the Knights as my runner-up too. It's pretty much the same thing with them. They like to clump up, and their death animation is cool.
I don't know.
I love their death animation. It's
I really like both of their death animations. But to be quite honest, the only thing that really improved over the Knights was the fact that they added a new type, which was Oblivion Knights. I really liked the old animation in Diablo 1 for them because they were big, tall, long weapons, intimidating spiked horns. They were scary looking things by comparison to their little weenie cousins that show up in Diablo 2.
Yeah.
They are by far my favorite monster I've ever encountered and always will be. And there's actually a little throwback to them in Act 4. The statues when you first get to the River of Flame right before you meet Hadriel, there's actually a bunch of statues of them, and as you walk past them, their heads actually turn in your direction. And they're standing there looking all menacing, and they have like little succubi on their statues, on their plinths. It's really cool. Cool little feature.
Yeah, the only other cool thing that happened as far as Diablo 1 in that respect was that you had a quest that was specifically around that. And what's really fascinating is it was a huge character that appears in the stories. Do you guys remember what quest I'm referring to? The only knight that you essentially had to kill, or run directly into contact with to get past him?
I don't remember his name, but I remember the quest. And he had like a bunch of armor
Lord of
stands
Blood.
and stuff. Oh yeah, there we go. And you can get his helm too, I believe.
Right. In Diablo 2, he appears by his other name, his specific name, but he plays such a small role. He only appears as the Act 3 mobs that spawn from Baal. The council members, Bartuk.
Dirty Bartuk.
That's him? Warlord of Blood?
So right, Bartuk the Bloody is the Warlord of Blood.
Huh.
So he actually appears in both games, but under slightly different names.
And appearances.
One he kind of very different appearances, and that's the other point I was trying to make, is that he was really awesome in Diablo 1 and pretty sucktastic in Diablo 2. It's like, oh, he's just another council member in a group of council members. That's lame. Like, you just run through them in a few seconds in that section because you're still focused on trying to get to Baal, and then they're completely outshined by the minions of destruction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was somewhat upset about that.
Especially when you have 8 people all spamming their AoE on the exact spot they spawn. Yeah, they don't last too long. Poor Bartok.
Now, Lord Desays, is there any? He seems to be another one that has sort of captured popular attention. Everyone remembers. It's like, oh yeah, then the Lord Desays comes out and you make a corpse run.
Yeah, definitely. He's pretty infamous.
Do we know anything else about him lore-wise? Or
No,
is he
there's
just...
no lore that I'm aware of describing him.
He's
or for the
French.
other one. Nice.
What area of the Diablo lore is French?
None
Is
of
there a French Quarter?
No? There's no French area up north or something?
The very first book is based on Norse mythology. The rest of it is mainly based on Greek mythology, so no French anywhere, as far as I'm concerned.
Other than the Lord of Six?
Yeah.
Actually, day. Is that what they use for of in French? Might be
No,
a
I think
different- Might be something else, actually.
it's Spanish.
Yeah, that's right. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis.
Yeah, of 6, he's Spanish. Alright, so that means it could just... Yeah, it's probably Latin, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what happens when you take Spanish courses but live in Canada. You get French and Spanish mixed up all the time.
Yeah,
I've actually, in Spanish class, started counting in French. And they're like, what? You're close, but not quite.
Nice.
All right, do we want to move on and save the big boss for the next episode?
Yep,
Since we've
I
been
do.
running pretty far into this episode. So yeah, that'll cover Diablo 2 Act 4 for this week. We'll talk about it more next week. But for now, let's move on to news. Biggest bit of news we got is, most of you already know, the Blizzard Fansite Invitational, which I found out about on, Tuesday, I think? I was actually at work on my desk, and my cell phone is set to receive notifications from the blog and whatnot, and Serenity Now posted on there about the Fansite thing. He said beta in August most likely, as well as 6 and other from fan sites have been invited to Blizzard HQ for the first look at it on July 27th. Yay! And I saw that, I was like, I should check my email. And I did, and I got an email from Blizzard. And at first, I was like, they sent me a broken email. Because the way it appears is there's only images on there, and all the text is in white, so it looks like it's a blank email. And I was trying to click on the images, hoping they would be links or something. I was like, what's going on here? And then through trying to click on one of the images, it highlighted a bit of text, and I was like, oh, it's in white. So I highlighted it all, read it, and it's an invite to go to Blizzard to check out the Diablo 3 beta, have some dev panel interviews, and tour the Blizzard campus, all that cool jazz. So, come July 27th, we should be getting a lot more information on Diablo 3 and the beta and whatnot, but there's an embargo on it until August 1st, which is when we can actually release all that information. But we'll have a nice show and presentation ready to show everybody by then. So yeah, look forward to that.
So, just so I'm clear, you're not able to go and I gotta go instead, right?
No, I'm definitely able to go.
Are you sure? Because you might run into broken legs coming up.
Oh, no, I'll still go with broken legs. I'll go with every broken bone in my body.
Okay, so...
Nothing
Yeah, well,
short
what
of
if you
death
get
will
to,
stop me from
8
going.
months pregnant and the airline won't let you fly?
Fortunately, I live close enough to drive.
Yeah, so this is what you need to do. When you're playing it, just totally hijack the computer you're on. Just pick it up and run.
Snatch and run.
That's right. I've seen them. Nerds can't
Actually-
run very far. So
actually do that. I wanna see how far you get. I really want to see how far you get. If you can get more than, say, 10 steps before Jay Wilson, personally just karate chops your,
Clothesline.
neck clear out from under your head, that's props, man. He's just going to pull out, space judo or something.
So yeah, needless to say, I'm extremely excited for that event. Since there is going to be a developer interview, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work. This is the first one of these I've ever been to or invited to. So submit some questions if you want through email, the blog, Facebook, however you see fit, and I'll do my best to get them answered. But I'm not the only one going. It's a bunch of Blizzard fan sites, like Sixin from Diablo fans, Force from Force Strategy Gaming, and I've heard like G4 and MTV whatnot will be there too. So it's a pretty big deal.
Really
It's
exciting
funny.
news.
G4 and MTV get invited, and little Joe Reef
Yeah, I know, right?
invited for Diablo podcast.
I'm actually still in disbelief. It hasn't
Okay.
like, fully sunk in yet.
Do you know
The
which
magnitude of
female from G4 is going?
I don't know. I don't watch G4. Your guess is probably better than mine.
Okay, if it's the usual one they send, punch her in the face. The dude they always send, he's good. Like the one that like the crew they send out to like E3 or whatever. The dude like he knows what he's talking about. The chick is just she pretends to be so excited, but she has no idea about any video game ever. I just
Everyone's
eye
got
candy.
a job to do. She's got a job to do.
her is
There to
to
do her job.
frustrate me and ask stupid questions and waste time instead of
Her
just
job
shut your mouth
is
and let the guy
to-
ask a question.
Her job is to have ovaries and be present on camera.
Well, yeah, but she's not. She should just shut up and do that then. Just, oh man, I'm just like I'm trying to watch the like Star Wars stuff and I'm trying to learn about this game, and she keeps asking retarded questions. I'm like, be quiet, woman. So I'm just worried.
Have
with
you even
Diablo
seen
3, like,
Star Wars?
I want to get. Yeah, I know. She's like, so the good guys are the Sith, right? Oh, you idiot! Shut up. So I'm worried with D3. Like, I want to get as much news from as many different sources as possible, and I just know that the G4 stream is only going to be half good because if she talks half the time, it's just a complete waste.
Hey, this is good for business, as it were. You know, the less competitors know, the better off we are.
Anyways, that was a nice rant.
Thank you for
I
building
feel better.
pressure on me to not screw this up.
Don't screw
Yeah,
this
you
up.
know what? Honestly, if you just went up there and be like, "What's the deal with the G4 chick?" Am I right? I will be proud of you.
Oh, yeah. Another news. We can now have YouTube videos longer than 15 minutes, which is huge news for us on the show and anybody who got annoyed by the playlists. So we can have videos as long as you want. So I've been, in our absence of creating a new show, I've been working on getting the old shows back up because we had a request for it. So I think I have like 13 through the rest of them up right now. And I'm going to work on 12 downwards from now on. But yeah, so there's that. And what other news do we have, Ken?
Holy, forums are hilarious.
Oh yeah, I've been
They're always
avoiding them
hilarious.
as of late.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen anything else really, other than because I feel like they're just building up to the July 27th thing.
Right.
There's a couple bits and bobs, like 18 tiers of visual goodness for the armor. I guess that's kind of old news now.
Right.
The Nephilim cube, no player collision. That one surprised me.
That one is technically old news because I do remember that as well. But again, a lot of these are kind of reaffirming some of the stuff that we either already knew or just simply forgot because it has been a while since they talked about it.
Right.
And what was really surprising wasn't that it was no player collision. It was the fact that you couldn't use your spells to create player collision, like Zombie Wall.
Yeah, that's actually kind of neat.
Right, because somebody mentioned about griefing somebody in hardcore with their zombie wall and stealing all their loot and whatnot.
Yeah,
Bashiak was like, no, you can't do that.
I like the comment he made about it, though, because he's like, well, thanks for letting us know how we can design it to not suck.
If you come up with any more methods, be sure and let us know, and we'll be sure to
Pretty
patch
much.
Please post all of your future griefing plans.
Yeah, we got some Witch Doctor, 4 examples of 4 different tiers for the Witch Doctor armor that Bash posted. They were at a different BlizzCon panel, but we actually have the images and we'll throw them up in the feed right about now on YouTube. They're still working towards a 2011 release, and the only other bit of news I think we got is the Steel Series Diablo swag. So they got like a headset, a mouse.
Wait,
and
where? What?
What?
I've been in the Yukon for a week. Dang it!
You didn't see this?
No, what? Where? Steel Series. Oh, I'm so horny right now.
And I've been waiting to see. So let's check out this mouse, and it looks like a Razer Death Adder, except it's got lights around the scroll wheel. Actually, this looks like a half decent mouse.
Yeah, my thought looking at it was more or less to the point of this is pretty much exactly like my mouse, except it costs more. That
looks
was
like
my
the-
only.
Oh, is that a Mamba? No, it doesn't have the 2 buttons there. But
Right.
Steel Series, is it created by Razer?
I don't think so.
No,
think they're their
they're
own
two separate
entity.
companies as far as I'm aware.
Thank God. I'm not a
Dang,
huge fan
well,
of Razer.
I hate Razer. Oh,
Yeah,
that
we
mouse?
both.
Okay. It is lit with Hellfire. Look at that picture. That is Hellfire powering that mouse.
Yep.
Let me see that
Nice.
headset.
Yeah,
it's
the
got
headset, I think I may, depending on the price, I may have to invest in that headset. It looks pretty badass.
Yeah, I kind of glazed over the headset. I couldn't really tell you much about that. The main thing I was focused on was the mouse.
What is a QCK? Is that supposed to be the mouse pad? What does that mean?
QCK.
QCK.
It says a Steel Series QCK. It looks like a mouse pad.
Yeah, it's a mouse pad. Oh, there's
Where's the
keyboard.
wizard
My bad.
mouse pad? I want a wizard mouse pad. Now.
QCK. I have no idea. If anybody knows, fill us in.
I have no idea, quite honestly.
QCK. Nope, doesn't say. So anyways, yeah, Steel Series Diablo swag, 2 mouse pads, a mouse, and a headset. Who knows if they'll have more products coming in the future, but I assume they will. A keyboard, maybe.
Oh, yeah, a keyboard that glows red with Hellfire.
Actually, both my keyboard and mouse already glow red.
Mine are all blue.
Yeah, mine's blue too. Match my computer case.
My computer. I wonder if I can change the lights in my computer to be red.
Oh yeah, you can.
Fire!
You can.
In
It's
fact,
easy.
the name of my mouse is Inferno, so it's one made by Cooler Master, actually.
Did you say your case or your mouse?
Mouse.
Oh.
A lot
Yeah.
of people aren't aware that they make mice.
I have the Razer Mamba, which I like to refer as a $120 paperweight.
Yeah,
Piece
that's
of
the
garbage.
exact same one I have.
Complete piece of garbage.
It's actually what my brother has as well.
Yeah, no, I hate it. I hate it so much. I want to kill.
I have a $30 blue track, and I love it.
From Razer?
Nope.
Oh.
When Razer $30?
I'm sorry.
That's funny.
In fact, actually, when I was buying this mouse, I was standing there and I was like holding the World of Warcraft Steel Series in one hand and like a Razer sort of midline one, which was a mere $85 in the other hand, and I'm like, should I get one of these? Maybe, maybe not. So I called up Ken and was like, hey Ken, what do you think of these? And he's like, blows goats.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, and I went and got a $30 mouse instead.
Which probably works better than my $120 paperweight.
It works great. I haven't had any problems with it.
You see the durability little feature on the mouse? I don't think I've ever seen that as a feature for a mouse before, but it apparently has 10 million clicks per switch, 3 times that of a normal gaming mouse. Because they know if it's for Diablo 3, they have to make a mouse button
Yeah.
that can handle the clicking.
I have killed mice with Diablo and WoW and a couple other games. In fact, it was my last mouse died because I started playing Diablo 2 again.
When they have pictures. When can I purchase this mouse?
No idea. You can enter your email and they'll notify you when it's available.
Okay.
But there's no other information on that as of yet. So yeah, moving right along. Are we done with news? We're done with news. Unless anybody has anything else.
No, mainly just funny articles like that site that was saying that Diablo 3 was definitely going to be out by October because of that freaking comment Bashiok made about the WoW pet store. It was quite entertaining.
I agree.
Oh yeah, I just no.
I didn't see
Not
it,
even-
so I'm out of the loop.
I'm not
Anyways.
even gonna get into the forums.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
imagine that
Good
G4
call.
chick making a comment. You're all caught up to speed.
But anyways, that's for another time, another place. Not here. We focus on the positive here on the World Stone Keep, unless it has to do with Razor. But anyways, let's get into some community feedback. Malek on the blog, I really love the rune vids, but I was wondering what rune effects on what skills you like the most. My favorite was the wizard. I don't remember what rune, but the one that turned it into that crazy spell. She levitates, or he levitates.
The ray of frost turns it into a
Yeah.
globe around it.
Yeah, that was awesome. Awesome spell.
Freaking amazing. I want to say it's Indigo.
That's the Indigo rune.
Indigo.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
The Indigo rune on Ray of Frost.
There's two.
I mean, the last rune on the acid one for the witch doctor is pretty excellent because he belches
starts
it out at
puking.
them. Yeah,
my
it's pretty,
my
spectacular.
runner-up is the gold rune on the monk skill because it sounds like you're punching them until money comes out.
Money bags.
Money.
That's right.
Oh man, visually I really like the indigo on Ray of Frost, and the alabaster on the acid cloud, but I do like the golden rune on the cluster arrow.
Yeah, cluster arrow was probably one of my favorites too.
Like lifesteal in an ability. Yeah.
Is that the one where that pops like the little souls out that
Yeah.
steal life from the enemy and give it to you?
And-
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
instead
rad.
of grenades. Yeah.
Awesome.
I also like the one that did the grenades is basically like homing grenades.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I like mechanically, I think cluster arrow is probably going to be the ability I use the most on. Like all of those runes were sweet.
I mean,
Anyways.
you could just see the possibility of PvE, PvP, boss fights. It doesn't matter. You could find really multi-situational things there.
Well, stunning. One of them stuns, one of them life leeches, one of them does a more of an AOE, one of them does heat seeking or whatever, enemy seeking, and one of them just increases the explosion damage.
Do you think that's that a lot of people are going to end up that will become a defining feature of a lot of skills? Is like, oh well, is it a good skill? Yes, no. Is it a skill that has a lot of good rune, that has a lot of breadth with rune choices? That makes it a better skill to choose because it's more versatile. You
Right.
can switch it around.
Oh,
Is that something that the player base is going to end up gravitating towards? And it'll be like, oh well, you could take Ray of Frost, but Disintegrate has better, it's also a line attack and it has better rune choices, so you're better with Disintegrate versus Ray of Frost.
At some level, I would
Interesting.
say yes, but I also remember my wizards that I made in Diablo 2 were more geared towards a specific niche, how do Americans say it? Niche?
Niche.
Yeah, niche. Where like I'm a cold sorcerer, I am a frozen orb sorcerer, so I do everything to bump that, and
Right.
and if I encountered something else, well then someone else needs to take care of it.
Right.
So I could imagine that at some level, some people will want to be able to versatilize their individual characters, but for me, I'm going to have very specific, and if I want my wizard to be doing something else, I'm just going to make another wizard that does that. But I definitely could see that being thought of.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, a question like that, it always just comes down to how well do they design the system. If they do a really good job on each rune on each skill, then it won't be an issue. If they, for whatever reason they don't really think it through on every single skill, then you will have instances where that will happen, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going, law of averages. With how many skills there are, 20-something per class, and then 5 runes per skill, you are eventually going to end up with a, one that could use a little love.
Yeah.
And, there is just law of averages. Something's going to end up second rate.
Right.
Bash runes?
Yeah, cleave runes.
Or cleave, yeah, like cleave. Cleave hits more people. Whoa.
It costs less.
Fancy.
Wait, I gain resource when I use this thing.
Produces more rage? Very deep.
Deep, fulfilling combat. Everyone you hit in the line, they now are, confused and attack each other.
Bergen from Spain had a question on the blog. Can we have the same skill in different slots linked with different runes? I.e. Ray of Frost with Indigo in a slot and Ray of Frost with Obsidian rune in another slot? Or can we only have skills in each slot?
Oh, you cannot.
Yep.
You cannot have multiple runes in a single skill.
That's right.
So there is opportunity cost with this.
So I don't know if you can have the same skill in multiple hotkeys. I don't know that. Because in the demos I've played, they never really let you move your hotkeys around, or at least I never tried. But you definitely can't have multiple runes in a single skill.
Right.
Multiple hotkeys I would expect. I mean, I would assume that in the final game, if you wanted to put cleave in all 7 slots, you could go ahead and do that.
Cleave.
So.
But you can't, you can't take Ray of Frost as a skill choice twice and thus get two rune slots for it.
Exactly. Precisely.
We had a YouTube correction from YouTube from Spirit Walker. In episode 25, the PvP screenshot we had, the mini tornadoes were caused by sprint and not whirlwind. I believe in the episode we said those little mini tornadoes, because there were 2 barbarians there, we assumed that they were caused by a ruined whirlwind skill, but no, he says they were caused by sprint.
Really?
Yep.
Sprint.
When we watched the rune video, one of the runes would actually cause whirlwind to have the little mini tornadoes.
Yeah, I think they do
Indigo.
have a little different appearance, though, than the ones on the screenshot.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, well, how can you actually tell what it came from?
Guys,
Yeah.
Okay, my running thing about only using a single rune, here we go. We're all going to be female barbarians. We're all going to use only indigo runes, and we will name our guild the Indigo Girls.
Indigo girls. Nice.
The Amazonian Indigo Girls. All barbarians.
All pink barbarian girls.
Can we go with, golden runes?
The golden girls? There you go.
Yeah.
That would be for our Witch Doctor Guild.
Age
Because they're all
customization.
old and crippled.
All of them pear-shaped.
All the indigenous women.
We are gross.
Oh, man. That's good stuff. Okay, only one other thing. Clarification on what runes we'll do at higher levels, higher rank. There was a video he posted on the blog of a BlizzCon panel showing what I believe it was a Demon Hunter skill did at higher levels, higher rune levels, and it just increased the amount of things shot, but it didn't go into really any other skills, and if they will have different effects at higher rune levels. So, I don't know. And I believe that's all we got for this show. What a long one it is. This may be our longest one yet.
Now, see, this is why I was preparing to cut the lore shorter than what I could have gone.
Yeah, good call on that. So yeah, anybody got anything else to add, or should we close it out and ship it up?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I'm done.
Alrighty then, say goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, Loyal 8.
We'll see you all next time on The World's Don't Keep.